So, willkommen zurück aus der Pause und willkommen zum letzten und dritten Teil, wobei das gar nicht so ganz stimmt. Wir haben nach dem Teil, wenn wir um 5 jetzt fertig sind, geht es ja direkt in die Abendveranstaltung über und möchte es gleich an der Stelle nochmal erwähnen, nicht, dass Sie auf einmal unterwegs hier sich aus dem Staub machen. Wir haben direkt danach einen kleinen Empfang für Sie, wo es auch ein bisschen was zu trinken und zu essen gibt, und denken Sie an die Online-Brauerei. Es ist definitiv wert, die nochmal anzuschauen. So, Mobility, drittes Thema heute. Wir haben über Design Advantage geredet, über Content Velocity, wir haben über Security geredet. Jetzt geht es nochmal um Mobility. Und Mobility sind immer zwei Aspekte. Das ist einmal das Konsumieren von Inhalten auf mobilen Endgeräten, aber auch mobile Endgeräte als Teil eines mobilen Workflows. Man muss wirklich immer aus Adobe-Sicht auf jeden Fall beide Seiten beleuchten, denn irgendwo sind wir natürlich da in der Verpflichtung, beides zu bedienen. Und wir haben ein schönes Spektrum an Referenten, die Ihnen hier das Thema näher bringen werden, auch wiederum mit Kundenbeispielen, was uns sehr wichtig ist. Wir werden Ihnen auch die Software heute noch live zeigen im Anschluss. Ich denke, das ist auch nochmal ein ganz wichtiger Aspekt, ein Gefühl dafür zu bekommen. Und zum Schluss machen wir nochmal einen Deckel drauf mit einem Abschlussvortrag, um das Design Advantage-Thema nochmal zu beschließen. Und jetzt freue ich mich auf den nächsten Referent. Das ist ein Kollege von mir aus UK, wobei das nicht ganz stimmt. Er ist eigentlich Synchronsprecher von der IKEA-Radiowerbung. Nein, das stimmt nicht. Aber er ist Schwede, so viel ist sicher. You have no idea what I'm talking about. Is that right? Ja, okay, you got that. Okay, und er ist Schwede, ein ganz charmanter Kollege. Er hat früher mal bei UPS gearbeitet und hat sich um die Kundentechnologien gekümmert, war dann eine Zeit lang im Vertrieb bei Google und ist es seit einigen Jahren bei Adobe, und davor schon hat er sich sehr intensiv mit dem Thema Mobilität beschäftigt. Er ist Head of Mobile in EMEA und unser absoluter Experte beim Thema Digital Publishing Solution. Und er wird nicht nur alleine auf die Bühne kommen, sondern danach bringt er gleich seinen eigenen Kunden mit. Und ich freue mich jetzt ganz besonders auf den sehr inspirierenden Redner Tony Markovski. Hi, Tony.
All right. Hi. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm not sure what he said, but I'm sure it's something good. So I am here to kind of talk to you about this for a bit. And it's sort of my way to kind of kick this off by addressing the digital economy a little bit, the new digital economy and how it's disrupting companies to, to do more like the red stuff there, companies and teams who are not doing really well. And then you have the green ones that are doing a lot better. And those who are sort of orange and not doing, sort of in between. And do they have anything in common? Those companies that tend to do really, really well. And what do the other ones that tend to do less well, what do they have in common? So I want to talk about that today, and the role mobile plays in all of this. All right? And just to understand the digital economy, I think, the one we live in today, it would make sense to sort of step 200 years back into the past. And, the world kind of looked like an engine back then, where things were really, could be broken down into simple pieces. Like this part of an engine that sort of was connected to another part of the engine, which then was connected to yet another part of the engine in a very linear way. And when things are linear, that's how we understood the world back then. When things are linear, you can really optimize and make things super efficient, right? And it's predictable when things are linear and simple. And, that was 200 years ago. And fast forward to, say, 20, 30 years, something started to happen. And today, we have, 25 billion devices connected to the internet? And by 2020, there's an estimate that there will be about 50 billion, 75 billion devices connected to that. And, the reality is that the world, actually, that we live in today, this digital economy we talk about, it looks like this. Like complete chaos. because there are so many connections that happens constantly all the time. And some people call it like the internet of everything, you've heard that, but it's also the internet of everyone, where everybody's connected to your brand, your products, nations are connected, events, culture, phenomena, revolutions. It looks like this today, very unpredictable. It's not like 200 years ago where companies could have, set themselves up to sort of succeed back then. It is a little bit different now. So this is the reality we have. And you know what? I dropped my mobile phone off there. But in the middle of all of this, the reason why it looks like this today is because of the mobile phones. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So if you want to succeed in all of this chaos, we have to sort of understand where it all began, and I'm going to look into that for you. So and try to explain to you, like if you want to succeed in all of this, if you want to have more green for your company, for your teams, and honestly for your own personal career, I would say, you should probably focus on this thing here, like designing really beautiful, meaningful experiences that makes people, your customers, I would say people because customers is so boring. You want them to feel something and to make them think about your brand. Or if you have it's more of a transaction, you want it to make it super simple and easy for them, very convenient. So design these experiences and make sure you do them really well on mobile devices, because I'm going to tell you that's where all your customers are. And once you've done that, I think we've talked about that today, that it's not just automatically going to make people love you. You have to make sure that your organization is set up to deliver the first thing here too. How do you design an organization, a team, that's set up for the digital era? What does that look like? I'm going to try to share some of my experiences with you on that. So, again, quick flashback to about 1900. And what you see here on the screen is how earlier technologies took about 50, 60, sometimes even 70 years to reach 100% adoption in the population, like electricity and the car. That was a long time ago. If we fast forward to sort of the time when I was born, I grew up with, maybe not the dishwasher, I'm not that old, but the VCR and the PC and the internet. It took 10, 15, 20, even 30 years for them to reach full adoption. And if we fast forward even a little bit further to just a few years ago, we saw the introduction of the smartphone and the tablet. And just look at that adoption rate. 100% almost in less than 5-6 years. That's insane compared to all the other technologies. And how do you keep up with that? And what does this mean? That's what we're going to look at today. So one thing to sort of be aware of here is, like if you look at, and I think this is interesting, they kind of call that thing on the left side a PC, personal computer. I don't agree with that. I think the first real personal computer that has ever existed is the one here on the right-hand side. It's super convenient. You can carry it with you everywhere you go. It's about 600, actually. This is 625 times faster than a computer 20 years ago. It has GPS, it's a phone, you can do payments, you can do anything with it today. Super convenient. And when you hook that up to the internet with super fast speeds, today with 4G, you can get about 20 megabytes of content per second to this device. And do you know 5G? 5G, it's like coming in 4 or 5 years. Do you know how fast that will be? Anyone? It's going to allow you to download content as 1,000 megabytes per second in 5 years. That's a lot of content. So the speed is not important here, but it's what you get with that content into these devices that is going to change quite a lot of what we're expecting out of these devices. Another thing that has happened, I love this one, because it sort of shows you here how the actual screen of the phone has developed since the first phone was introduced. This is the relative size of the phone. And what this really means is that for the first time, we have a window into the digital world that allows us to interact with it in a meaningful way. Does that make sense? Right? Huge. And then all of these things together have sort of given rise to what some people call Generation C. That's a term from my old employer, Google, where they talk about the Generation C, the connected consumer. And what that means is really simple. It's like, on this mobile device, you're doing everyday things, like booking a taxi, or checking in on a flight, on these apps, on the mobile device, and you're expecting it to be super simple and smooth, a transaction, if you will. And your brand, if you're not there, you're missing out a large chunk of customers. And it has nothing to do with age, by the way. It's not 40, 50-year-olds. This is not for 15-year-olds either. It's for all of us, everybody who has these phones. And if you convert this into numbers, the Generation C, if you try to quantify it, I love that. Like 60% of all the media out there today is consumed on a mobile phone, on a smartphone. 300 billion apps. People are talking about the fourth generation of the internet. And the fourth generation of the internet, I think you're seeing the beginning of that there. They think it's called, the web of apps. That's pretty nice. And 2.5 billion smartphones, that's quite a lot. And, you can't see this here, but I'm going to try to explain that to you. It's like this is looking at the trends for the past 5 years on the amount of time people in the UK and the US spend on these devices versus desktop versus all other forms of, like TV, print, and so on. And what you see here, if I can point in this column over here, this is in the US. 2011, people spent on average 48 minutes on the phone. Today, almost 3 hours. And if you compare to desktop, back in 2011, it was 2.5 hours. And today, it's 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's declining, plateauing, declining. That's not good. That's not where you want to be. And the same thing, because everybody's like, what about Europe? And so I tried to include a stat there from the UK, not Germany. But you see the exact same thing there. Mobile is just exploding in terms of the amount of time we decide to spend on that device. And now, most of you, if you're a brand, your biggest area of growth or region where you want to grow is probably in Asia. So I decided to include China here as well. And the cool thing about the China statistics is that mobile it's completely dominating over there. It's not just like it's overtaking desktop, it's completely dominating, crushing desktop. 2 hours on average on the mobile device. And the web is only 1 hour. Same thing there, web is plateauing or even declining. So over there in Asia, we're like behind here in Europe. That's the future. It's not mobile ready. It's not even mobile first. It's mobile only in Asia. And that's where the future is going to take you and the brands you're working for, and even yourselves. So if this is true, then Wayne Gretzky, he's like a hockey player. It's not him there on the image, by the way. But Wayne Gretzky said something really nice, and he said, if this is true, I think it's true, so skate to where the puck is going to be, not to where it's going. If you're a brand, this is where what you should be doing. You should tell your teams that this is very important. You should build stuff for mobile devices first. Really, really important. And one company that has done this, do you know this one, by the way? Anyone? I hope nobody raises their hand, except some people at Adobe who knows. It's a company called GoGoVan. Do you know how many drivers they have, or actually use this service? About 20,000. Based in Asia, they've been around since 2013. That's 2 years, 20,000 drivers. They don't work for them, but it's like Uber, And look at their advertisement here. The phone is like bigger than the actual van delivering the goods. And just look at the messaging here, like move stuff with one hand. I think that's really clever, and it's, it's one of these mobile-only companies. You can't even use their service on the web. And I decided to show you. I tried to actually use this to use their service, to get a package to be picked up and then have shipped somewhere in Hong Kong. And I'm going to show you this because, remember, designing really good experiences is important. And I think I'm going to show you a great example of it, and then a really shitty one. So here, this is the actual screen. So when you open up the app, this is what it shows you. And check this out. You can just click. I click on that one over here with my finger, like from. Where am I from? And the cool thing is that, obviously it's a great app because it takes advantage of the features of the phone, the hardware, the GPS, so it knows where I am. We might take that as a given, but that's like really great. So it knows where I am, and then I go and say, and I actually typed that in. I want to have it shipped to Kennedy Town in Hong Kong, and you immediately see the amount down here. It's 100 Hong Kong dollars. You click on the next button, and just by the way, you see 3 simple steps. It's like a checkout online. You want to keep it simple, right? So I click on the next step, and here some additional services. Like, when do you want to pick up the package? What time? Do you want a van or a 5.5-ton truck? And, I thought I should have an English-speaking driver here, $5 extra. And you immediately see the total amount. Click on the next one. You get a summary of all the services I have picked. Click on Find the Driver, and all of a sudden, if you've ever used Uber or Halo, you would see that there is 1,400 drivers around me just immediately coming to pick this up for me. Super convenient. You know of these guys. Small company, very agile, mobile only versus these guys. And they are like synonymous with fast shipping, right? Express, it's even in their name, in their logo. Express, Federal Express. So let's have a look at their experience, and I'm going to shut up when I show this. End user agreement. I don't know what that is, just a logo. And here it's like very cluttered, right? It's very cluttered, and here you have create shipment. So I click on that. And then I get some instructions on how to use the app. I can tell you've done something wrong if you need to have instructions in an app telling you how to ship a simple package. And what happens next, I'm not sure if you see that, but if you look on the top, you're being directed away from the app onto a website. It's a responsive page, right? And a loading screen, and I'm talking about from an experience perspective here, obviously. And check it out, this is a FedEx, this is the light version you're gonna see of their shipping system, the light, nimble, super nice experience here. I'm just warning you. So let's have a look at what it looks like. This is like, cookies, and enter your to/from address, and there are a billion fields. Me, I think, fat fingers, so something happened, and it's like all weird here. It's really fucking complicated. And then when you have to sort of select which city you're from after you've figured out all the details of where you are, you have to scroll down all the way from ABC to the UK, because I live there now. So it's really complicated. And then the next step, I have to choose the package. I have to swipe around here to the left, right to find the kind of package I want. There's a lot of text, details, even the millimeter, how large these things are. And if we continue, look at how how pricing is presented, and the pickup times, really, really cluttered. Look, I'm just going to take you through this. So this is the experience you're going to get with FedEx on a mobile device. And remember, this is the light version of it. My point here is that the experience is going to be a competitive advantage for a company like GoGoVan, because it's going to be simpler to book it that way. And once you've gotten used to that, you will never go back to something like FedEx has. It's so tempting to use GoGoVan instead. And like I told you there, FedEx, they're very famous for fast shipping, right? And GoGoVan is sort of eating away that business for them in the most lucrative market for a company like FedEx. That's where they're going to grow in the coming years. And GoGoVan is doing their job, much, much better. It actually took me less than a minute to do that booking. And with FedEx, if you check out the time on my slides, it's over 10 minutes for one single booking. Now, GoGoVan is not the only company that's sort of doing fast shipping really good. Here are some other ones, and they're just as good. And they're all mobile first or mobile only. They don't need a website anymore. They don't want that audience. And there's like a couple of other ones as well that sort of eats away everything FedEx does really, really well. And there's like an expression in English that I really like, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. And that's what you guys are seeing here. Small, nimble, agile, mobile-only, mobile-first, super cool organizations killing these big old giants. So what do they have in common? Like, why are they so successful? Why can they build an app that looks like that? Why is it that they succeed and FedEx is not? They have so much money, hundreds of thousands of people. Why are they not doing that? So there's an article in TechCrunch that tried to explain this. And it's written by a guy called Tom Goodwin. And this is how he summarized that. I think this is super important. These companies like GoGoVan, founded in a world of new behaviors, with a mobile phone, inspired by new technology and liberated by the new marketing dynamics. And what that really means is like, if you look down here, they have basically ignored all the old rules, all the knowledge, all the assets, all the processes, all the rules that made FedEx successful. They don't give a shit about that. They want something new, better, agile. That's why they're killing them. Death by 1,000 cuts. So I know I had a colleague up here just a while ago. Where are you, Brad? Are you still in the back somewhere? Our security guy, chief security officer. So I know he showed like a nice organization chart. But these big companies like FedEx and Adobe, I have to be honest, they have something in common that also prevents, agility and stuff. And it looks like this. Typically, it looks like this. So, like somebody in the top there, like, nice C-level title, sort of saying no to everything. I'm not saying, Brad is doing any of this, but obviously, I think there's some truth in this, quite a lot of truth, at least the companies I have, worked for in my 10, 15 years or so. But, a lot of no's and rigidity. And if you look here down in the right-hand side, I'm sure many of you, and I know some of you, I'm just randomly looking at some of you that I know you're feeling this. You're somebody sitting a little bit further down, you have great ideas, you want to do all of this, you want to do what GoGoVan is doing, but something is stopping you from getting there. I want to come back to this in a second. And the reason for it, I think, is coming back to this 200-year-old sort of, that some company still thinks the world works like it did 200 years ago, and still thinks of the world as a very predictable, linear machine where A leads to B leads to C. That's not true. Mobile and all the Internet of Things is doing this. And that structure we have on the right-hand side, the top-down with the silos where people don't even talk to each other or collaborate, is really obsolete. That is one of the big reasons why these companies, like FedEx, and maybe other ones as well, are unable to adapt and digitally transform. They will become disrupted, which I think is really great, by the way. So this is a bad thing. So what can you do? Like if you want to do something differently, I talked about that in the beginning a little bit, like design not just great experiences like GoGoVan, but also focus on designing your team, your organization, and even the entire company, if you can influence it. And I strongly encourage you to do so. And what you see over here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there is no manager here. I happen to be one, I think, so I can say that. But they're usually really shitty, and they add absolutely nothing. Just rigidity and non-flexibility. So what you can do instead is to create what they call team of teams. It's a nice book, by the way, but it's a way to organize yourselves in a very agile, flat way, where teams collaborate between each other across silos to be able to make decisions much quicker and better, to build these beautiful experiences. And it's called sustained organizational adaptability, in fact. And if you've ever worked for one of those companies or teams or created one of those teams, they typically have these things in common. And I just put some of the, some characteristics of the culture in those teams. Typically they're very purpose-driven, not just revenue-driven, not just quarterly-driven. It's important stuff, but it feels like you're part of something bigger, that there's a purpose behind what you're doing. And people self-organize in these type of, if you have that type of environment, and they end up doing great things. There's a lot of empathy with customers and with each other. There's trust, transparency, and information and ideas tend to flow freely across silos. And when something new comes along, like a new thing, like a mobile device, and completely changes how people behave, those organizations can more easily adapt to that and actually succeed and produce more of those green, lovely numbers that I showed you in the beginning, instead of being disrupted, like maybe FedEx will be, maybe. So I'm just going to skip this. So if you do this right, guys, focus on designing your company, your team, even your mindset about how you approach digital. Maybe break some rules a little bit. That's good. Then, you can always give your teams a great technology that will allow you to build really beautiful experiences on mobile devices. And yeah, I'm with Adobe by choice, and it's a pretty good technology to build things like you saw there, like really intuitive, super compelling experiences on mobile devices. Getting great content out there, not just for your end customers, like customer facing, but also for your employees on the inside of your company. Really, really important. And once you've done that, it's no longer about one single app that's going to solve all your company's problems, but you might be having 10, 20, 50, in some cases 1,000 apps. We have that in Europe today. When you have that, you need a way to effectively manage all of those. And in a secure way, Brad, obviously, really secure. And then, John Travis, who was up here, he talked about, that you need to track and understand what people are doing on these devices. So when you've built an experience like GoGoVan, you will see that people enjoy it. They actually complete the purchase, complete the service, the purchase of the service. But you can also see where they fall off, what's not working. Take that insight, make it actionable and change, go back to the creation stage, but do it in a simple way. It doesn't have to take thousands of hours, right? You should do it on the fly. If it doesn't work, change it. You don't need to call your agency and spend, thousands of pounds or euros on it. And then once you get those three things right, you usually end up actually being able to monetize it, giving a better experience to your customers. That's a good thing. So if you do that, get a technology that allows you to build really engaging mobile experiences, because that's where your customers, and honestly yourselves, you're there too, okay? That's a good thing. And if you do that right, whether you like it or not, mobile has this really cool way of breaking silos, like e-commerce, social, content creation, marketing, you name it. It's all sort of converging on mobile, and you need to collaborate, which is a beautiful thing. Collaboration is really, really good. And if I think, put this like business strategy here, but what I mean by this is that mobile shouldn't just be like a bolt-on thing. Does everybody know what that means, bolt-on? It's like it's not an afterthought, not something you do in the end. It's something you do immediately when you design something. You need to think mobile first. Maybe even if you're bold, mobile only, because that's what the future will be. If you get all of that right, you're going to see a lot of green. You're going to do, I think, it's a bold thing maybe, but you're going to succeed in the digital economy and see a lot more green over there. So that's my stuff. And now I'm going to invite up a guy called Patrick Muller from DocMine, and he has He's not a chief ID killer, but a non-chief ID killer maybe, and a managing director for them. And you've built an organization that has delivered a great, beautiful experience for a company called Swiss Air, you know, like a famous airline. And his company, you've won like, 20 awards
Around that,
in the last couple of years. So he's going to talk to you about how you make this real and concrete. All right? So thank you for me. And here you go, if you want to use this. Thanks, guys.